I am joined by Republican Representative Mike Jones, who is the incumbent here, Democrat Chris Rodkey, who is a pastor and part-time college professor, and Keystone candidate Christine Koestler-Womack, who is a paraprofessional and the PTO president in the Dallastown School District. We do have the rules to go over here. We have 2 issues. Each of you will get to respond and offer a rebuttal to your opponent's response. Responses will be limited to 45 seconds, rebuttals 30 seconds. To determine who answers first, we are using alphabetical order of your last names for the first question and then reverse alphabetical order for the second. The first issue now, the economy. Polls show it is among the biggest concern for voters. What can you do legislatively to help businesses grow, fill jobs, and help people financially? And this question begins with Representative Jones.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, so when I first got to Harrisburg almost 4 years ago now, I co-founded and I still chair something called the Economic Growth Caucus, and this is exclusively what we focus on. People like myself with business experience that have owned or led a business, and we focus on energy policy, which obviously we see the impact of poor energy policy at the fuel pumps currently. We look at taxes, which we are one of the most tax-happy states in the country, which is why we are growing older, smaller, and poorer by the day. Regulation that we need to cut back on and reduce. We're very business unfriendly. And then workforce. We need to really emphasize vocational education in particular, especially in York County, where 20% of our jobs are manufacturing.
Pastor Rodkey, the same question to you.
I agree with everything we just heard here, but I would take an approach that we start with what's good for working families from the outset. So increasing the minimum wage would be #1 of my priorities, because that's good for business, it's good for families. Every economist agrees with that. And we also need to find ways to find tax cuts for the working class, and particularly for small business owners that are working class, your self-employed persons, and people that are starting businesses from the ground up.
Christine, same question.
We saw during the pandemic that a lot of occupational licenses were waived, whether they were expired or out of state, and they cut the revenue. We removed that revenue coming into the state by waiving those licensing. And I think that shows that occupational licensing is just a revenue for the state, and it's not actually for the people. So I would look to reform that process, work with leaders in different industries to see what kind of laws are being implemented in Harrisburg that make it hard to expand and operate in Pennsylvania.
Representative Jones, would you like a 30-second rebuttal?
Not a rebuttal so much, but the thing I would add to it is the other thing that we need to address, which is the top priority in our district and really in York County, is property tax. It's absolutely criminal what we're doing to our seniors. We don't just need to reduce it, we need to outlaw it and eliminate it because it's way too easy to increase those taxes. It's an unfair and regressive tax, so that's the other huge policy change that I've been fighting for.
Pastor Rodkey?
We've been hearing for 30 years from Republicans that they're going to eliminate property tax. Representative Jones has put something forward in the legislature to put that forward. But what we need is property tax relief. We're not going to eliminate property taxes. The plan that you put forward is going to increase taxes on retirement income. I think that's the wrong move, but we need to find a middle ground approach to help those that are on fixed incomes, particularly those who are senior citizens.
Christine, would you like 30 seconds?
Sure, and since we're talking about property taxes, I think the key there is adjusting the formula that is done for the funding. We see in other states that they don't even use property tax for school funding and things like that, that we need to adjust those areas as a way to take the burden off of the taxpayers and the people who own properties and put it back on the state.
Our second issue, and Christine, with reverse alphabetical order that we've all agreed on here, you will be answering this first. We're talking about abortion, an issue that is now up to the states to decide. Where do you stand in the debate over a woman's right to an abortion?
Thank you for asking this question. I am an avid pro-lifer, but I also believe that there is a need for abortion in our state. It is healthcare and it needs to be accessible in all forms. And we also can still advocate for life, the sanctity of life, while still providing and having access to healthcare. We need to be working on birth control reform and having it accessible over the counter. We need to be reforming the foster care system as well as the adoption process. Foster care system, all of these children that the Republicans want to be born will most likely end up in the foster care system and be a ward of the state when they come to 18 years old, and then they will be given grants for education, and I know that that's not something that everyone in the state necessarily wants.
Pastor Rodkey, the same question to you.
I'll start out by saying that I believe in a woman's right to choose unequivocally. My wife and I had a miscarriage and ectopic pregnancy here at Women and Babies Hospital right here in Lancaster, and we had to sign papers before she could get surgery for the one miscarriage, saying the opposite of our medical diagnosis to be able to get the surgery. We know what's on the line. The abortion issue is about more than birth control. It's about more than all of these other things that often come up with it. And we need to trust women to be able to make their own decisions, and women should not have to leave the state to have a miscarriage.
Representative Jones?
Yeah, well, obviously miscarriages don't apply here to abortion. No one's going to take away treatment of miscarriages. I am adamantly pro-life. I believe the solution is adoption. My wife and I have adopted all 4 of our children, so I know firsthand what the solution is. With that said, I do believe in exceptions for when the life of the mother is at risk for rape and incest. I think those are common sense exceptions. And I recognize it's a very divisive issue, so I think a good place to start would be the heartbeat bill. If we recognize, which we do, that life ends when the heart stops beating, we should recognize that it begins when it starts beating. And I like to say, as much as I love my mother, she's a wonderful mother, I adore my mother, she does not have the right to decide whether I live or die.
Christine, would you like 30 seconds to respond?
Yes. I am an IVF mother. My child was born via IVF, and with the current bills that are being proposed, IVF could be on the chopping block. There is what I'm considering an egg registry within our system currently in the legislation, where they have to report discarded eggs and things of that nature, which is opening a sliding door to IVF being taken off of the table, as well as there's already current legislation where you have to get your husband's approval to have an abortion. These are all sliding doors that are going to open to restriction of women's health care, women's right to choose, and this is not okay.
Pastor Rodkey, 30 seconds.
The idea that miscarriage care doesn't have to do with this is simply not true. We've talked about this before. When it's come up in the legislature, it's been debated, and the best you all could do is recite the Apostles' Creed rather than answer the questions and address the issue. I'm telling you the truth of what happened with my wife and I. Because I work for a church, abortion was not covered by my insurance, and we got that bill coming in the mail. And I was quite shocked to find out that we were having an abortion because we were having surgery after miscarriage.
Yeah, the pastor attacked my good friend Frank Ryan with totally false information. It's shameful what he did to Frank Ryan, who's one of the best legislators in the state. But regardless, IVF is not on the chopping block. No one this has anything to do with curtailing how we would treat miscarriages. The Democrats have nothing but failed policies. This is a desperate act to scare people into voting for them. No one in their right mind is going to support any type of legislation. I've not even heard it discussed in the state, nor would it ever pass. It's just a false narrative to scare voters out of, to make up for the failed policies that we see currently.
We are out of time. Thank you all so much for being here and for talking about these issues with us. These debates will continue throughout the election season.